Hello. Testing my microphone this morning for you, all you snow shovelers out there. I have one request before we start. Make a snow angel with me, the indoor kind. Let's stand up if you're sitting. Before we get going with our back, I can still imagine what it feels like to make a snow angel. If you've never done it, it feels so good. You sink down. Come on, angels. Make your snow angel. Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't have to make any sense at all. It just has to sound like it's fun. Remember when we were kids and we would spontaneously do silly things? That's what this is about. So good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for all your comments. Hello, Susan. And let's see who else is with me. Jane, good to see you. Hi, Victoria. And practicing peace and loving kindness. I'm not sure your first name. I'm trying to figure out who you are because I know I should know. Suzanne, good to see you. Louise, welcome back. And Leah. So I hope if you were here yesterday, you enjoyed yesterday. You do not need to do these in any sequential order. Okay, so that's the first thing. We can do them in any order. But yesterday was feet to the pelvis. So now we're up and in the pelvis. And so we're going to get started on our mats on our back. With this practice, because we are working on the pelvis, I usually like a little bit of extra cushioning. So I'm going to take my blanket here and put it on top of the mat. Not to mention, even though we don't have snow, it's it's a winter's day here. And it just feels nice to be a little bit more cushy. You know, I was thinking as I was getting ready for this today, having been sick and all, and you look, and so many people right now, I know I'm not the only one, are doing some sort of resolution practice, 30 days of yoga or something. You see so much of that this time of year. And for me, this last week, I've really felt, or since the new year, I've really felt like I'm not ready to break out. My brain is still in winter, hibernating. My body still feels like it's frozen and wants to go to bed early. So I don't know who decides that January is the time that we're supposed to spontaneously break out of our shell and want to do all this stuff. It's not me, because I'm not there, I'm not ready. But at the same time, I do honor the somatic practice because we can stay grounded and stay relaxed. You can do it in your bed. I invite you to do today's practice in your bed. So put that extra blanket down, make yourself comfortable, and feel free to continue your hibernation, either whatever side of the globe you're on. And we'll come down and we're going to start today. We're going to land and locate in a constructive rest position, which means constructive rest is when the knees are bent and feet are on the floor. And to be more specific, if you lift a leg up and you put your knee right over the front of the hip and take your ankle straight off your knee. So we've got a 90-degree angle with the leg. Take that and then just step it down, and you might do that with your other leg too. By the way, if you want some sort of padding underneath the head to start, you can, although the neck will be moving. So if you were here yesterday and you did the neck roll, we wouldn't do the neck roll. We would do more of a flat surface just to lift the head. And the way you'll know if you need something or want something under your head is if your head is back here and your throat feels like it's really open, or your shoulders are lifting off the ground, that's usually a sign that we have a little bit more of that head forward. So if our head's forward when we go down to the ground, those shoulders are going to be lifting and our gaze is back. So in that case, please feel free to take some sort of blanket or pillow, just enough to bring your throat into a neutral position and keep that curve in the back of the neck. Okay, so I jumped a little bit, but now we're going to go back to the legs. So find that 90 degrees. And I like to lengthen my tailbone a little bit. And then set the feet down about hip distance apart. Notice where your low back is, because we're going to be making sure it's luscious today. And start to very slowly tiptoe your feet away from your bum. And notice as you do that, at what point does it feel like your low back is arching away from the floor or lifting or maybe even shortening? You can feel that arch increase. So I can feel mine right here already. I can sense how my pelvis is tilting forward. So we don't want to go that far because what we're trying to do is find the natural curve in the low back. So walk them out and then slowly begin to walk your feet back in. And this time go all the way to where your heels are close to your buttocks. So we're just kind of playing, go really close. And notice at what point does the low back begin to push into the ground. So we're actually getting rid of that natural curve. We're kind of smushing it out. So if I walk my heels all the way in, then it almost feels like my tailbone's lifting and the low back is pressing into the ground. So we want to find that happy medium, the Goldilocks position. Not too far forward where we're overarching our back and feet not too close to the buttocks where we're removing that arch. And then just take your arms wherever you'd like, although I'm going to recommend if you want to place them on your abdomen, it's a good landing spot since we're going to be in our pelvis, our beautiful pelvis today. Just sense the way the feet are resting on the ground and the position of the legs. We're going to land in everything that is touching the ground, anything that feels supported. And that can include the support coming from any props that you're using. But notice the back of the hips and the pelvis. Maybe you can feel that one hip feels heavier or lighter, higher or lower than the other. And coming up into the low back, the lumbar spine. Can you sense a small air pocket underneath there? Or maybe it's flatter on the ground. Coming up into the center of the spine, just feeling where your ribs are in contact with the ground. Maybe they're moving as you breathe, maybe they're not. Can you sense both the left and the right sides of the rib cage, the spine in the center, coming all the way up into the shoulder blades? So bones make really good landmarks for us to land in our body. Think of the bones like they hold the element of the earth in them. They're strong and heavy, like stone. And so feeling your shoulder blades all the way at the bottoms, inner edges, outer edges to the tops of the shoulder blades. Maybe one is landing differently on the ground than the other, higher or lower, heavier or lighter. And coming up and noticing wherever your arms are, what parts of the arms are touching the ground, what's not. And continuing into the neck, the cervical spine. Just like you might have felt a little curve in the low back, can you sense the curve in your neck? Like an air pocket underneath the neck. And if you follow that all the way into the head, you'll sense where the head, the skull itself, is resting on the ground. We'll be playing with the pelvis, but we're going to right now recognize the wholeness of our spine from the base of the spine, or what I like to call the tail, all the way to the tongue. So feel the space from your tail to your tongue. You can even visualize the vertebrae, each muscle, each nerve between the vertebrae. And invite this movement to be organic, meaning if at any point your shoulders, your head, any other part of your body wants to respond, and it responds with movement, it responds with sensation, then let it. So if your hands are not on your belly, I'll encourage you to do that. We'll begin to take a soft abdominal breath. So breathe in, and the first thing we do is we check that we're not reverse breathing. And if you are, you can do this without doing it to the breath, but this is a nice way to start to take yourself out of that pattern. So if we're reverse breathing, when we breathe in, the abdomen would come in or contract. And what we want to do is breathe in, and the abdomen fills like a balloon. And then we breathe out, and we just let it empty. So the inhalation, or inspiration as it's called, is active. It's the active part of our breath. We fill the abdomen. Of course, we're not filling the abdomen, we're filling the lungs, but the pressure of the diaphragm pushes the abdomen upward, like it's filling like a balloon. And then the passive part is we just let that breath out. Notice how the abdomen comes back in and down. So we introduce breath in this movement, first of all, because the breath alone is extremely healing for the low back because it helps to relax us, but also because we're going to move to the breath. So now focus more on that inhalation and sense exactly where your abdomen is filling. And as you breathe in, imagine that balloon of your abdomen just slightly lifting up towards the sky. So a little bit of voluntary motion. And as you breathe out, let the abdomen fall and let yourself land again. So we're locating from the abdomen, breathing in. Feel the abdomen rise. Go really slow and easy. And as you breathe out, let the abdomen fall. So there's two ways we create force or movement. One is by pulling away from gravity, away from the ground, and the other one is by pushing into gravity. So right now we're creating force and movement in the pelvis by pulling away from gravity. So what you can do, though, is make it more easeful by thinking your breath fills the abdomen, it floats up, there's a buoyancy, and then that, in turn, will create a little bit more arch in the low back. And then you breathe out, and it empties, and you just fall back to that neutral position. Do a few more moving from the belly, lifting the belly. And then just change your relationship to where you're feeling the backside and breathe into the belly still. But as you breathe into the belly and it expands, think of lifting the back itself off the ground, the low back, and then let it fall back down. So instead of initiating from the front, from the abdomen, you're going to inhale, initiate from the back. Now, if you have low back pain currently, you may want to make this a smaller, more graceful, easy motion, because recognize as we lift, we're actually compressing the lumbar spine, the low back. Can you feel that compression, and can you feel it release? And doing that by lifting up away from gravity, or letting yourself float up with the breath. Notice if your head's responding, your neck in any way. We'll get there, so just notice for now. So let's try one other way to make this same movement, and that's the freedom. The freedom comes when we can make the same movement using different combinations of muscles or initiating from different places. So now feel where your tailbone is. Remember, we went tail to tongue. And as you breathe in, instead of lifting the belly or lifting the back, push the tailbone down a little bit. And as you breathe out, just let yourself land once again. So it looks like the same movement perhaps on camera, but now I'm pushing down with my tailbone. Still breathing into the belly. And then just releasing back to the space of grace where the body naturally rests. Active inhalation, pushing tailbone down. Exhaling and releasing. So oftentimes it's one of these movements that feels best, but sometimes it can be a combination. So now I want you to play with creating this bigger arch in the back or compressing the low back by either lifting the belly, lifting the back, or pressing the tailbone down. And what is the best way for you to find the greatest range of motion with the most pleasure? And something that can start to happen is, I'm feeling it a little bit, is your legs Might be trying to tighten and protect you. At any time, you can take the legs out, shake them, come back into that constructive rest, but we really want to try to keep constructive rest to encourage the legs to stay relaxed in that position. Take a few more into the arch. Maybe taking a look up again by your tongue. And just see if it's not happening, you can make it happen. As you're arching your back, if you can bring your tongue slightly towards your tail. So the throat will close, and then we release it. Imagine your tongue is following your tail, and release. Last one. And we'll pause. Now we're going to switch the awareness and just start to notice your expiration when you're breathing out. As I said, it's generally passive, soft. The expiration, just all it really does is ask for another inhalation when it finishes. But now we're going to take a movement on the exhalation. So think first of your low back and your low ribs, and we'll push into gravity to create motion. So as you're breathing out, gently press low back and low ribs down into the ground. And notice as you do that, the way the pelvis will come into what we call a posterior tilt. It's tilting back and down now instead of forward and up in the first movement. And then just breathe in and release it again. We're not going to do both movements, just the one. Exhale, press low back and low ribs into the ground like you're spreading them. And then breathe in and just release any of that pressure. Notice any resistance as you push the back into the ground, the ribs. Can you feel shortening from the pubic bone to the navel center, or even from hip to hip? So we can create this motion. This is the curl. We did the arch first. By pushing the low back down. We could also create it by lifting the tail up. So instead of pushing into gravity, now on your exhalation, lift the tailbone just a little bit. So I'm not going to come all the way up into a bridge pose. Just enough to feel my low back lengthen, the front of the pelvis compress, or the abdomen compress. Trying to keep my arms out of the way, but you can put them on your belly if you want. Inhale, release, fill the abdomen. Exhale, lift the tail. So we're still working with a more passive exhalation, but we can actually recruit more muscles for expiration so that it's not passive. So now, if you imagine your navel center and then a string from the pubic bone to the navel center and the two hips, as you exhale, draw the navel center in, so contract or compress that center area. Like it's like a vacuum right around your navel and everything's going in. And then breathe in. Release that. Let your belly fill and float up again. So how does that feel? To do more of an active expiration, to draw in through your navel center. Feel your lower abdominal muscles and maybe even the pelvic floor. This is an opportunity for the pelvic floor muscles to draw in. The transversus abdominis, which is your lower belly muscles, and your pelvic floor muscles are the twins. They work together. So by drawing the abdominal muscles in on the exhalation to create that little bit of a curl, you might also start to feel that natural recoil of the pelvic floor muscles drawing in. And if you don't, that's okay. So once again, let's find the perfect way for you to do this curl. So it could be pushing the low back and low ribs down. It could be lifting the tailbone. It might be activating your core abdominal muscles. What feels best for you? Remember, this one we're lengthening the low back, right? We're giving it some spaciousness. And also just take a look up at the head and neck and see if there's any response. So what should happen is as your pelvis tilts down, or this posterior tilt, your nose will look back. So think of the pelvis following the nose now. And then we release it. So the other way we can begin to look at this relationship, it's all relationships, between our low back and our neck, is that on this exhalation, as the low back lengthens, the curve in the neck shortens. And now let's put them together so we can see the other side of that. So on inhalation, however you found the easiest way to find your arch, pushing tailbone down, lifting belly, lifting low back, and then exhale right into the curl. Lift tailbone, press low back down, draw your navel center in, your pelvic floor, whatever works for you. Think of this as tail to tongue. Find your movement that feels soothing, but also mobile. And then see if you can imagine your tongue chasing your tail on your inhalation and your tail chasing your tongue on the exhalation. Or the other way is those two curves in your back, your low back and your neck. As you inhale, the curve in your low back shortens and compresses as the back of the neck lengthens. And as you exhale, the low back will lengthen and the curve in the neck shortens or compresses. Really simple movement, but finding your style points that feel best for your back. If we want to add just a little bit more today, take your arms to your sides and land in those shoulder blades, those bony landmarks. And now as you inhale, push the shoulder blades down too. So not just the tailbone if you're pressing the tail or lifting the belly, but push the shoulder blades into the ground. You'll get a little more arch through the back, so you'll feel more in the thoracic spine, the center spine, your rib cage will lift. And as you exhale, you might even lift the outer shoulders and arms off the ground. Option. If you're adding the arms, pressing shoulder blades down on the inhale, feeling that full back arch. And on the exhale, lifting the outer shoulders and arms. Then notice what that does to the rhythm of the neck and the head. Can you still roll through the back of your skull? Is it still a tail to tongue movement? Or does adding the shoulders in some way mess up that signal? Just take a few more, find yourself. We also do little things with the arms. We roll the arms inward on the exhalation. You might roll your arms away from you, external rotation on the inhale. Up to you. Some of you know probably this full body movement. But for today, we're making it about the pelvis and letting the pelvis guide or inspire movement in the rest of the body. We'll start it out as this rocking in your pelvis. Adding even more on if you'd like. As you inhale, you can tip onto the pinky toe side of the feet, dropping the legs open. On the exhale, rolling back through the big toe side, even squeezing the inner thighs. So when we squeeze the inner thighs and come here on the exhale, that's going to encourage the pelvic floor contraction as well as the transversus abdominis. So if you're doing that more active core, that's an option. And then, of course, the counterbalance to that is if you're dropping the legs open, you're more inclined to be stretching pelvic floor muscles and your abdomen. Let it feel good. So let the pelvis take the whole body for a ride. Always opportunity to stop anywhere you want. Okay, so if you remember, I had to start making angels in the snow standing. Can you once again take that image? Hopefully you're a person like me that really enjoys snow. But either way, you can have a nice big warm snowsuit on. Imagine you're making angels in the snow. With that childlike, playful attitude. And notice the rhythm of your whole spinal column. The inhalation, the front body stretches all the way from the pubic bone to the throat as the back body compresses or contracts. And on the exhalation, the whole back body stretches as the front body shortens or contracts. So you can think of yourself from front to back. take a few more rounds for yourself. One of the simplest movements we do, but really important in reinitiating our intuitive core muscles, pelvic floor, transversus abdominis, the diaphragm itself, our engine of our breathing. And then we're going to stop and pause just for a moment. And you're welcome to take your legs out long or do whatever you need to in between. We're going to always take that landing position, though, just to be still. Because there's so much sensation in the stillness. And that's the feedback. This is the feedback we're getting. What did we do? What did that feel like for our body? One of the ways you know is, what's the shape of your lips? Is your face soft? Can you turn the corners of your mouth into a gentle smile? That's always a good sign. All right. So moving on again, luscious low back and our beautiful pelvis. We're going to come back into the constructive rest, and we're going to do another movement. And this one will be more of, well, if we were standing, it would be a rotational movement, because when we step, one hip comes forward of the other. But because we're laying down, it seems like a hip lift, like we're going to lift one up. And we'll start with the left side. So come back into your constructive rest. You can place your left hand on your hip. And I want you to first push into your left foot. Push the heel and the ball of the foot into the ground. And notice what that feels like. You'll feel your leg muscles tighten up, and you might feel the left butt cheek lift a little bit, and the hip lift, and then drop it back down. If you want to do this to your breath, the action is on the inhale. You can push down and release. So we're starting by initiating the movement with the foot and the leg muscles, pushing down into the foot. Because we like our feet, as we found out yesterday. We love our legs. But let's now see if we can make this more of a pelvic movement. So keep your left leg more relaxed. And can you still get that left hip to lift up? But now you're going to use the muscles in and around the buttocks. I like to call them the little glutes, glute medius and minimus on the outside of your hip and the back of the hip. And then letting it just fall on the exhale, back to the space of grace. So you'll notice too, I'm not letting my legs rock. It's not a windshield wiper movement. Keeping my legs as quiet as possible without holding them. It's just the left hip lifting up. And if we feel it from the back, what you'll notice is as you're breathing in, you're starting with your weight equal on both sides of the pelvis. You'll roll through your sacrum, your sacred sacrum, and the weight will go into your right hip. And then as you breathe out, you'll roll back through your sacrum and feel the way you land back on both hips. The other way I sometimes like to imagine this is if you had a drop of water in the center of your navel. As you're breathing in, that drop of water is going to roll over to the front of the right hip as the left hip lifts. And then breathe out, and you drop that left hip back down, and that drop of water rolls back to the navel center. And just keep working on just lifting this left side. Notice if it feels mechanical or sticky. Can you smooth it out? So there is an option here too to bring in the upper body. As you're breathing in, you could keep your elbow bent or straight and just gently reach that left arm overhead. It's going to encourage a little more arch in the side of your body. You don't have to use your arm. Make sure you're finding that hip first. You might roll your head to one side or the other. Let the head play. Be aware of that space at the top of the inhalation. You can maybe feel the arch through the left side of your body, the lengthening through the left side of your body. Weight resting on your right hip. Just taking a few more for this left side. And then pausing. So I'm going to be switching sides. I'll turn so you can see me, but you can stay right there. And before we go to the second side, just take your legs out. Even if it's just 5 breaths, Notice the left and the right, specifically your hips, any changes. Just like if we paint a picture, write a story, we go back to read what we wrote, right? We look at what we've painted so far. So what have you painted in your body? What color do you feel? And then we'll do the second side. So feet come back to the ground. You could use your hand as a nice tool for your awareness and place your hand on your right hip, but we'll start, at least in the constructive rest, by pushing into the right foot. Feel free to use your strong leg muscles to find that movement of the right hip lifting. Or what it is, it's a rotation of the pelvis, right? The right hip would be coming forward if you were walking, your right foot would be stepping forward. And then we breathe out and we let it fall. So feel the rotation. You can feel it from the back, the way you're once again rolling through the sacred sacrum, but now onto the left hip. Breathing out, just letting both hips land in the ground again. But what does it feel like to make this movement from your leg muscles, pushing into the foot? Remember, we can push into to create force, but we can also pull away from. So now let the foot land softly on the ground and pull away from the ground with the right hip to create that same movement. And then breathe out. Let it just land. So getting into those muscles that wrap around the outer hip a little bit. I do my best to try to keep my knees pointing upward without tightening the leg muscles. There's a natural response. If you want to add the arm, the right arm could slide. You might turn your head. So these are just more instinctual things that happen sometimes. Letting your body respond. And so if you're like most of us, I like to normalize things. You may have found that it was much easier to get one hip to turn on and lift than the other. Completely normal. You're already making these great discoveries in your body if that's the case. And there's no judgment. The work is already done. I like to say you found your flaw. That is the work, is finding it. And then the rest of the work is offering it loving kindness and playing with it. So this is my sticky side. But sticky is a word that makes me smile, so very different than saying my bad hip. All right, and do one or two more with that right hip. Maybe it's your sticky side too. And then pausing, even just 5 breaths. You can take your legs out long, let your body completely relax. Notice how you're breathing. Are you still breathing to your abdomen, or have you gone to a chest breath? And we're going to do that same movement, but we're going to alternate, and I'm going to give you an option to take it a little bit higher and make it a little more, a little sweeter, but also a little spicier. So feet on the ground. I'll show it from the right side first. Still not using the legs as best as I can. I'm going to initiate from the pelvis. I'm going to inhale, lift the right leg up, slide my right arm overhead, maybe turn my head. Exhale, come back down and relax. And then the left leg, inhale, reach it up, lift the hip up, exhale, come back down. So just alternating, and think of yourself rolling through the sacrum, one side of the pelvis. So I'm still starting by making it a pelvic motion. But if you want to get a little bit more into it, we do what's called walking in place. So I'm going to turn towards you. So getting a little more into it means as I lift my right hip, I might also draw the right leg forward and inward. Just getting a little more side stretch through that right side. Exhale, come back down. And then begin to lift the left hip. So I'm still initiating from the left hip. Lift it up, and then you can take that left leg in and forward. Imagine taking your left knee to the right front corner of your mat or towards your right foot. and coming back. So I like to imagine that you're walking. And when you walk and that one foot comes forward, the hip comes forward, right? Well, the truth is that hopefully the pelvis is leading you into the step, the imaginary step. So instead of walking from our feet, walk from your pelvis. Make it sassy. Your sassiest, sexiest walk. And enjoy the side stretching as you do it. You can always stop and pause anywhere you want. Take one or two more. We've got one more movement we're going to do today for the low back and pelvis. Stopping to meet yourself where you are, land again. What's changed? Can you keep yourself present in your pelvis? Are you starting to feel any changes as an expression of spaciousness in your ribs? Because we can work with the low back, but really we can't just work with the low back. Everything is interconnected. So notice the space around your ribs, center of your spine, your neck, tail to tongue. And then the final one is a little bit more of a challenge. And this one will help you to see if you have what I call butt cheek confusion. So we come back into constructive rest. And I'm going to go through it slowly because this one is slower and I don't generally do it to the breath. But where we've been lifting up one hip, that's going to continue, except I'm going to lift the hip all the way off the ground. So right now as I'm lifting my right hip, I can feel tightness in and around my hip and my buttocks. And this is what's powering me is my right side. And I'm going to keep lifting up. The left side is going to come off the ground. But my left side is relaxed. My right side is doing the work. And then I slowly begin to lift the left hip all the way up. Now my left butt cheek just turned on and my outer hip. My right one is relaxed. I'm going to slowly let the right one come down. Left one supporting it. And then the left comes down. And so that's the way I'm going to start from the right side first. So squeeze the muscles in and around the right hip, the buttocks. Lift the right hip up very slowly. Then let the front of the left hip come up to meet it. So at some point you're equal here, like you're in a bridge. Release the muscles on the right side. See if they can just hang and fall with gravity. Let the left side support the right on the way down. And then all the way down and let it go. And continue to take a few more starting from the right. So this one is really great too with the low back with a set of muscles called the quadratus lumborum. Oftentimes if you have low back pain, one side will be tight and overworked and the other one is on a long holiday. So seeing if you can recruit the muscles in the right buttocks to lift you up. And then notice where that switch comes. For a moment, they're both recruited, right and left, partners. And we release the right and let the left support you on the way down. Take one or two more, initiating from the right side. And can you get a sense of when the muscles are changing from one side to the other? Relax. And see if you can switch it. So oftentimes it's easier to start from one side than the other. So now, this is my harder side to do. You would lift up the left side first, squeeze the muscles in the left outer hip and buttocks. Keep squeezing until you start to feel the right one come up. So you think of taking your hip bone, and these bony landmarks too, right in the front of your hips. The ASIS points are great to touch. Keep taking them up, up. And then eventually switch. Relax the muscles in the left buttocks. Let the right take control. Let that left butt cheek come back down. And then the right, and everything relaxes, right? Remember that last little spot at the end where everything is relaxed. So if you think of it as dividing not only your buttocks, but your low back. Think of your spine, and you're using the muscles on one side of the low back, and then the other. And one leg. And just lifting up. Sometimes we barely lift. Doesn't have to be very high. In fact, it's nice to play with different heights. So come all the way up to your end point. And then slowly come down. So watch for those sticky spots. Go slower through the sticky spots. A nice even drop. And the slower you go, the more work it is. Getting this relationship between the muscles in and around the outer hip and the ones that we sit on the majority of the day. I'm just taking a few more here. This is a really easy one that I do to release the muscles in the low back. For you, maybe you're noticing again that one side is easier than the other. You can switch out which one you're starting with. So making this as smooth and voluntary as you possibly can. And coming back to the position of rest. Shake out your legs for a moment. We've been on our back for a while. So if you want to stay on your back to rest and land and locate one more time, you can. The other thing I might encourage is that if you need a new position, the fetal curl is a lovely, lovely, restful, supportive, safe position. And when you do a fetal curl, it's kind of like doing, well, you can always, people like to pull their legs into their body. That's one way to do it too. But on your side, either side, you want to round your spine. So it's not just pulling your legs in, but round your spine, make space in the backside. You can use your arm or a pillow. So I usually prefer this to doing a child's pose after doing back work. And if you're there, feel the space again from your tail to your tongue. In whatever position you're in, see if you can offer some breath to the back body. Can you breathe into the back body? And if you're positioned to where your back is rounded, there's going to be more space back there. Feel the backs of your lungs, the back of your heart. And let that buoyancy of the lungs filling create spaciousness and movement in the back body as you breathe in. And that feeling of coming back home as you breathe out. So before we finish, of course, you're welcome to stay here, continue your practice, but say thank you to your luscious low back. And I call it that because, oh boy, we're so good at bad-mouthing our low back, aren't we? Luscious low back and happy hips. I'm going to step up and say hello, and you're welcome to ask questions, leave comments. I see lots of comments up there. You almost lost me there. I could have stayed in that fetal curl for a little while longer. But I invite you to work your way back if you'd like, and if not, I will officially end the practical part of our class with a peace, joy, love and light, and happy weekend to you. And still here for a chat.